On Saturday, April 26th, Leeds faced a very chilling attack when a man armed with a crossbow and firearm injured two women on Otley Road, an incredibly busy part of the student pub crawl route known as the Otley Run. The 38-year-old suspect, who remains in critical condition after a self-inflicted wound, was arrested at the scene. Police quickly declared a major incident and recovered the weapons used. Investigators say this wasn't a random attack. The suspect reportedly posted violent threats online before the attack and showed clear links to two very dangerous extremist ideologies. Incel culture, a misogynistic subculture blaming women for men's failures, and the Great Replacement Theory, for those that don't know, a racist conspiracy falsely claiming that white populations are being replaced through immigration. The Guardian reported there has been a large rise in a number of young men referred to the government's Prevent scheme over the women-hating incel ideology. Official statistics have shown a senior counterterrorism officer described incel as an emerging risk, making up 1% of all referrals to the anti-extremism scheme in the year to March 2022. 77 cases, triggered by concerns that mainly young men were falling for its message. That figure compares with no recorded referrals in the year to March 2000 and just 3 referrals in the year to March 2021. That's quite an interesting jump, to be fair. And I don't know if it's because we've become more aware of certain issues, but I think it's something that we can unpack in a little bit. Understandably, Leeds is shaken, and this attack forces us to reckon once again with how online radicalisation bleeds into real-world violence. Cog, in an era of internet echo chambers, I think we've come across a lot online together when it comes to people coming from those circles. How can we better detect and disrupt the path from online extremist subcultures such as incel forums or Great Replacement conspiracy communities to actual acts of violence?
Detecting them is somewhat difficult, but we kind of know the spaces they exist in. We've got to dedicate obviously a lot of police time to doing that. But to be honest with you, addressing online cultures is tinkering around the edges. Actually, the problem begins with people's material conditions and their lives. Their lives are what determines how they approach the world, and how they approach the world at the moment is exposed and vulnerable. They are vulnerable to radicalization from all sorts of angles because no one is happy with the way things are currently going. We have a climate crisis. We've got a cost of living crisis. We've got Trump in the White House right now. Things are looking bad. You've got people losing their rights left, right, and center. You've got our right to fair trial being taken away. You've got all of the politicians in the Western world, it seems to me, reading off the same like anti-immigrant, anti-trans hymn book. And that's a world in which people are vulnerable to extremism because they're being offered nothing else. They're being told, hey, you know, your lives are miserable. Good luck. And of course, when you're in that situation, you're going to reach for whatever you can to try and screw the system over. And there are people waiting to exploit that. Of course there are. On the question of the Great Replacement, as a term, it really annoys me. Because, right, I'm gonna use a sort of like example I stole from Sean, the YouTuber. Right, okay, so this is a pen, right? Now, what's this? I'm going to replace the pen with a pencil. Right? Yeah, everybody follow that, right? For some reason, this confuses right-wingers because when I have them both there at the same time, one has not replaced the other. The pen has not been replaced by the pencil. Like, the immigrants are not replacing you; they are just existing next to you. As a term, it's so stupid.
It is. But they can't see that, Cog. They can't see that it's a ridiculous theory. Like, they can't see that it's a conspiracy, that you are not actually being replaced. But this is the thing, is particularly within incel culture, that there is, and you'd alluded to this actually, this alienation under capitalism, and that I think under late capitalism there have been these markers of masculinity that define what being a masculine man looks like, and you know, it looks like looking like these huge providers that are trying to protect their family and their state and like the things around them. And it's concerning because it erupts into a very, very reactionary, violent force of nature that isn't actually an accurate description of what masculinity actually is. And it's hard because I think we're having a lot of conversations at the moment about social media platforms and this pipeline into far right radicalization, but also this radicalization into being completely riddled with misogyny, that it drives you to do these atrocious acts. This is not the first time that someone's used a crossbow in broad daylight. I mean, we can bring up Carl Clifford, who literally killed his ex, her sister, and her mum, and then tried to then kill himself. Similar to this one, except I don't think this guy had any attachments to or ties to the victims. But crossbows, there's no ruling particularly like around that. I don't know what the legalities are around crossbows, but it seems to be quite easily accessible to the point that people are willingly using them in broad daylight. But I guess I would hope that there is a collective responsibility. But Cog, what do you think? Like, what responsibility should social media platforms in particular and online communities have in monitoring or intervening in extremist content? Because he was posting pretty insane things on Facebook.
Intervening, they should have some responsibility, some responsibility to flag, take down. All of that stuff is good. I don't want to disagree with that. Sorry, it's the kebab skewer that's getting to me. All of that stuff is good. I'm not against any of that stuff, but I do think a lot of it is going to be, it's not going to be addressed by social media platforms, not just because they're owned by billionaires who, frankly, make money off of this stuff, and they love this stuff because they need people who are just unwilling to look at their own material conditions. They need people who are wrapped up in ideas that are very devoid of any kind of systemic analysis and analysis of like, oh, I'm actually here and Jeff Bezos is like up there. That they need people like that. But also, it's a case of addressing material conditions, yes. But in the case of like how we address it, it's got to be done through mockery and undermining their masculinity. And there is a reason for this. It's because when you have a conversation with somebody on the far right, you have to understand that you are not having a conversation with them on the same level. It is not about the reason. It's not about the logic, right? That's not the point for them. The point is to intimidate and disconcert. And the only way to undermine that is to, in the case of particularly misogynists, seek to undermine their masculinity. Because if they associate the arguments that they're making with their masculinity being undermined, it takes away their power. And their power is all they care about. They do not care that you think Donald Trump or Andrew Tate are dangerous, because that's something that they can get off on. Oh, I'm being dangerous. Oh, I'm being edgy. Oh, that's great. But as soon as you start mocking them and saying that Donald Trump and Andrew Tate are actually ballless little nutsacks, they don't know how to respond to that, right? And it's not that you can't use reason. Please do continue to use reason and continue to make good arguments. But you have to add on the like caveat of doing a bit of mockery as well. That is like a key part of undermining them. Because let's not forget that so much of this violence, whether we're talking about the violence of the attacker in Leeds, or we're talking about the violence of somebody I can picture his face. Why can I picture Elliot Rodgers was the guy I was thinking
Elliot Rodger, yeah, the mass shooter.
Yes, so much of it is done through what we refer to as cumulative radicalization or stochastic terrorism, i.e., they're not given an instruction, but they've very clearly been radicalized by ideas apart from them. And undermining those hate figures is absolutely fundamental, undermining the masculinity associated with those hate figures.
So maybe you can enlighten me then a little bit further, because I would push back slightly on mocking them, but I'd be open to you interrogating that. Yep. How could we possibly mock? Because we know that incel culture is not some, far-fetched. It's not something that exists in isolation. It's obviously, we've pointed towards, late-stage capitalism, neoliberalism, like alienation being the things that push them to feel that the way that they push them to feel the ways that they feel. Would the answer not be that we don't mock these lonely men, but instead smash the system that isolates them in the first place? Because it's the system, is it not? Or is that like a bit of a cop out to say, well, it's the system that isolates them. It's the system that breeds this sort of this alienation, this I don't feel good enough to be in society. I don't feel good enough to assimilate, etc., etc. So how would you respond to that? Do we smash the system, or do we do both, or do we simply just undermine and mock the masculinity that they're resonating with?
You're not wrong in that you need to be able to take apart that system. But also, in this time, we are living in an age of aesthetics, and people are like crying out for politicians and people who are willing to be mean, who are willing to, when the right wing come and they smack at your rights, willing to smack back, like willing to be just that little bit nasty that we need from politicians right now. Like the spinelessness of people like Joe Biden and Keir Starmer and Kamala Harris has left us without a proper response from the left. And the left has a proud tradition of giving the boot to Nazis. Like, we should be giving the boot to these people. Maybe not in an actual physical sense, but perhaps in Minecraft, maybe. But no, what I mean is intellectually. Obviously, what I'm talking about is the rhetorical response. We need to get stronger with our rhetorical responses and not just give them milk toast like, oh, well, we'll do some reform, or maybe what we'll do is we'll copy exactly what the right wing do. Like, no, that people are sick of those sorts of responses and want a bit of, no, actually, I'm willing to be a bit mean to you if you are going to say things that are fundamentally stupid. If you engage the anti-Semite in conversation, from Sartre's quote, if you engage the anti-Semite in conversation, you have to understand that the point of the conversation for them is not the words that are being said, but the power that is being exchanged.
Yeah, brilliantly said, to be honest. And to be fair, you answered one of my final questions. But I think my last question to you then is that we have, this government intervention scheme, this strategy Prevent. I'm not quite sure what they're preventing at the moment, because we know that violence against women and girls is a national emergency. It's happening. It's rife. It exists in our back gardens. So at what point should such ideology like misogyny, like the Great Replacement theory, like these ideology-driven attacks, be legally classified and prosecuted as terrorism? Do you think it will ever happen? Or is that a bit of a far-fetched question? But I'm intrigued to hear your thoughts.
No, I don't think that's far-fetched at all. I think that's spot on. I think there's a very convincing argument in Laura Bates' Men Who Hate Women about this very issue, saying that it really does fit all of the criteria that you would associate with terrorism. So terrorism basically is any political movement by a non-state actor that commits violence against a population of people, civilians usually, in order to elicit some sort of political response. The definition of misogyny, the definition of all of the things that are associated with like a lot of incels say that they want I've forgotten the term, but I think something like white Sharia or something like that, because they think that Sharia law is where women have no rights, and because they don't know anything. They don't know anything about Islam. That doesn't matter to them. But the point is they want the law to change. They want oppressive systems that they think will put them on top. By the way, these people would not be doing well in like old-timey, more misogynistic systems. Like, I'm sorry, but the incel weirdo is not going to be doing great during like the witch trials. Like, I'm sorry, dude. You're going on the pyre as well, man. Yeah.
Right.
It's just, yeah, you don't want that, but they think they want it, and it does fit all of the definitions of like a terrorist organization. But I also think we need to have better words than terrorist, because the word terrorist is currently being used to undermine all of the most basic fundamental rights that we have.
Yeah.
And particularly the right to a fair trial in the US right now. And that is really
Agreed.
serious.
Support independent media. Support social justice that's there on social media. Thank you. Turn left.